I'm Kit Bell. Today I'll be printing with some very ordinary plants. Just some scruffy weeds I picked up at the dog park. They're the kind of thing that most people would walk right past or take a weed whack or two. But if you stop and really look, there's surprising beauty in them. I'll take you along as I gather these weeds, show you why I chose them, and how to prepare them for printing. Then we'll head to the gel plate to see what they can do. I'm out at the dog park this morning, just taking a stroll and seeing what's growing along the edges. It's amazing what you can find when you actually stop and look. Most of these are just weeds or native plants, and they are destined to be mowed down soon by the city. But what caught my eye today is their texture. Some have these fine, delicate leaves that I think will print beautifully. Others hold bold shapes that might make good silhouettes on the gel plate. I'm always looking for variety, some soft, some spiky, some feathery. It's the mix that keeps the prints interesting. Of course, my dog Katie is here too, but she's mostly interested in the squirrels, not the weeds. It's a good reminder that these everyday activities can actually be little creative adventures if you're paying attention. So these weeds right here, the moment that I cut them in the dog park, they started to wilt. So I put them right away into water once I got home. These ones were just an extra little, oh, look at that, I think I want that too, when I went out of the dog park. So I snipped some of these, and these ones also seem to be very sensitive to water, so they're in a vase as well. I can basically keep them going as long as I've got them in some water. This grass is quite interesting. It has a very flat and very symmetrical seed pod, which I think if you look at that against there, I think that could make some really interesting patterns and probably very good to get detail out of. And I think that this will keep. I'm not worried about this wilting or drying out on me. Now this weed is a kind of a wild daisy. And it's lost most of its little flowers now, but I'm not too worried about that. I just really love this lacy foliage. I think that's quite attractive. And it's one of those ones that's a delicate balance because it will wilt pretty quickly if I don't keep it in water. So I've had it in water for a couple of days, but I do need to press it under weight because it's kind of all every old which way. So for the last couple of hours, I've had it under these panes of glass. And I think that's probably done the trick. So today I'm going to be using my 12 by 14 inch plate. I've got a 4-inch sprayer, little palette knife, mixing surface. I have got some 9 by 12 mixed media paper. I've got some tissue for clean-offs and also to pull some prints that might be interesting for collage. So initially, I just want to see how any particular weed is going to print. I don't really need this whole plate to be rolled out, but I'd rather roll beyond the edges of what I need, and then I've got some leeway to decide where to actually put the material and the paper. Right now, I just want to see how this is going to print. Sometimes there's too many leaves. For example, this one would block the image of these guys. Now, let's try a piece of the tissue with that. The tissue is very good at kind of giving me an idea of what I'm going to get, and it's very good at rubbing between all the little bits and pieces. So right in here, for example, how much of the negative space I'm going to pick up. And I think that this may be a plant that I might have to prune a bit get some of the excess leaves out of the way in order to really make this into something interesting. But we'll see. I find just pushing with your fingers sometimes works well. Gets into those little nooks and crannies. Oh, yeah, there's a few little negative spaces cropping up in there. Okay. So that is the first negative print. It's got quite an interesting shape to it, doesn't it? I love the way I can just keep on pushing in there and finding more little negative spaces. There we go. Now the next question is, do I want to get more of this purple and blue out of the background? Or would I just like to go ahead and lift it and print it? And I think I'm going to lift it and print it. Now, once I've lifted this, I'm going to turn it over on my work surface and put it down jammy side up. Keeps the work surface a little bit cleaner. And also, if I want to use that piece of foliage again, I can hopefully remember to put it jammy side down. I think I'm going to do this on a piece of this paper. Oh, it's not quite big enough. That's got a lot of really interesting detail in there. So even though some of the shapes are quite dense and with not a lot of little negative pockets in them, I'm quite liking the detail in this plant. And I did have enough of the purple out of here in the background. I have a few little creasy marks from the tissues, and I kind of like that. So this time I'm going to keep with the dioxazine purple, but I'm going to add some transparent red iron oxide to that. I still have quite a lot of dioxazine purple on my brayer, so that's going to affect the overall paint. And what I might do is bring in a clean brayer and roll out the transparent red iron oxide. This will give me, it's a very weak color. You match it up against dioxazine purple and poor transparent red iron oxide is going to lose every time. So it'll give me a chance to sort of mingle these colors, but without the purple completely taking over. Okay, now using this a second time is a little bit delicate because you have to make sure that all of the leaves that were down before, like that one, are down again. Otherwise, they'll transfer to your clean paper. I'll just fan these out a little. Sometimes nature needs a little bit of help. There we go. This time I'm going to use a larger sheet of tissue. I might as well get this whole image. I just recently did a video on different types of paper for printing with gel printing. And I did a little cost comparison. And mind you, the cost comparison is definitely specific to my specific area, because papers that are from England, for example, are much more expensive in Canada, and the opposite, I'm sure, is true as well. So you always have to take a look at what's available to you, but you might want to take a look at that video. I'll leave a link up in the top right corner. Because I did find out some really kind of interesting things, I thought. One of the things I found out was that my Spectra Art tissue is actually quite economical compared to a lot of printing alternatives that I can, say, get on Amazon. And the other thing is that I bought quite a large quantity. I bought 500 sheets of mixed media paper. It is acid-free mixed media paper on Amazon, and found out that it's only 8 cents a sheet when you buy it like that. So, definitely worthwhile going ahead and getting a larger quantity. All right, let's see how this looks. Now you can see I did have a little bit of print off from that one leaf there. It wouldn't stay on the right side. I'm just going to nip that off because I can't flip it over again because it's got ink on both sides now. But that's actually quite a nice pattern. Now I'm going to try taking off more of the background, but not in a super detailed way. I have a specific type of negative print that I like. I'll show it to you if this works out. I've used it in a number of my collages, which I quite like. And it's where you have very little plate ink in the background. And frankly, the tissue paper actually does too good of a job pulling off that background plate ink. I just have to make sure I don't get too much of a line there. So now I'm going to take the big tissue again. Yes, that's right. And this time I should get quite a bit of ink. See how it's coming in around the leaves? That's kind of what I was hoping for. And around the stems. So as I give this a good rub, it should give me a slightly haloed effect. Yeah, so I retain the white area in the negative, which allows me to play with design and put other things on top. But I've got a fairly strong bit around the edges, and I quite like that. And that's another candidate for collage. I'm even getting a little bit more of that rim effect. And then delicately lift it up and turn it over. Sometimes the plants just don't cooperate all that much, and there's nothing for it but to just use them once and then dump them out. But I love it when I can use it more than once. Now this is coming along very nicely. I love the detail and the sort of patterns that are coming up in the vegetation now. And I want to get this whole image. I don't want to take off just a small portion of it. So I'm going to do it on tissue. I will have to get out some larger mixed media paper so I can put some of the prints on that. But for this one, I kind of like the composition, and I do love the color and the detail that's coming up. Oh yeah. I really like the way this plant printed. I wasn't sure I was going to like its shapes, but I really do. In these fainter negative prints, the leaves hold a nice amount of white space and create an interesting design with the negative spaces. And you can see in this print, the positive print here, just beautiful detail of the leaves in here. So going forward, I'm thinking this plant might be a good choice for my collage work. Well, I've been making YouTubes now for over a year. You'd think I'd know better, but in spite of getting up and down on my stool to check the framing and that my jelly plate was in focus and all the rest of that sort of stuff, I forgot to press the button that turns on the recording. But fortunately, I still do have the prints. My first roll-up was in a fairly bright set of colors. And did quite well. I liked the negative shapes, the spiky shapes that the grasses produced. And I thought there was actually quite a lot of nice detail that came out of the grasses. So I gave it another shot and rolled up a set in green gold specifically, and they came out really rather well. I'm quite pleased with these. So, of course, with my golden open paint, there's quite a few prints. This was the first negative. Again, interesting shapes. And the second negative. And then this was the first positive. Quite a lot of plating still in the background. That green gold just lasts forever. But because I had used some of these grasses in the previous prints, you'll see that there's a little bit of the brown and yellow from the previous prints that is transferred to this print, which is, I think, really makes it a lot more interesting. And then I took a second positive on mixed media paper, and the same thing happened, of course. It's just fainter than this one. But really lovely detail of all the seed heads in here, and the stalks and the little bits of extra grasses and things, and a nice combination of colors. So I'll definitely be thinking about this plant in terms of taking it forward and using it in imagery in my both collage and for finished prints. Now, it's still quite springy. I may have a go with the other piece that I picked and try leaving it on the plate underweight overnight because it's still poking up between pulls, and that doesn't give a very clean image. You never know whether a plant is going to surprise you in a good way or disappoint you. You just have to try printing it and see what happens. Those are some interesting shapes on there. There's some plants as well which create more interesting negative shapes on the plate, and some that create quite interesting positive shapes. So until you've gone through a little printing routine with them, you never know quite which way they're going to fit into your practice. There. Well, there's quite a lot of detail in that. The flowers have actually taken a roll. Might be an interesting one to use in the foreground in a darker color. Now, this is the negative print that I always have kind of high hopes for, because as you can see, because of the way I've taken the original prints, the first two, I'm getting quite a nice halo around these shapes, and I quite like that when I'm doing collage. I find that it's a nice shape to work with, you know, in earlier layers of a collage before you get to the stuff on the front. Oh yeah. So if I use that on a collage, I'll have these quite bright white shapes, assuming I put it over top of white, of course. And then I'll have just this sort of ghosty stuff in the background that I can paint into or other things like that. And then let's see what happens when I pull this up. This is quite nice and dark. And it might be that I only want a piece of it for a collage. I might just select that grouping or a piece like this. Oh yeah, look at the color and the shapes in that. There'll definitely be one more pull here. It's the nice thing about this golden open paint, just keeps on going forever. My first pull that I did was just on to clean off paper, printer paper. But now I've had 2 pulls in the negative on tissue, and now 2 pulls of the positive image on tissue as well. There we go. That's more subtle than the first pull, but there's beautiful rich texture in all of this. And again, I might just take a chunk of it. I really wasn't sure that I was going to like these daisies when they printed, but I thought, well, let's give it a try and see what happens. They are kind of bunchy, and I think what I would do in the future is print more than one of them at a time to give a more varied shape. But definitely some potential here for the type of collage that I like to make. And the positive prints is what really showed me this plant had to offer. Those little ferny things that were all woven in around the stems created this beautiful, beautiful texture on the plate. In both the first positive, which is quite strong but still has some lovely, and especially in the second positive, I was just amazed at how beautifully this printed. So I will definitely be looking at printing more of this. And the nice thing is that these particular weeds are available for a longer part of the season than some of the other ones are. You know, this whole process has been a great reminder that sometimes the real magic is in the ordinary things we walk past every day. When we slow down and really look, we can find surprising beauty in the scruffy edges, in the cracks in the sidewalk, and the quiet places we usually overlook. And I think that's a pretty wonderful mindset to bring into both art and life. If you've enjoyed this, I'd love to know, what materials have you tried printing with? Or maybe there's something from your own neighborhood you'd like to try now. Let me know in the comments. And if you want to explore more gel printing and collage ideas, I've got lots of other videos you can check out. Plus, I'll be offering an online course in January 2026, if you're ready to get your hands dirty. Sign up for my newsletter to get notifications as more information about the course becomes available. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.